So thank you for returning to face-to-face worship, and we understand that some people can't worship with us because of health reasons, because of other issues going on in their life, or their families. So continue to pray for them. That doesn't mean we're not a community. Remember that our congregation is a congregation that it's not just here in St Paul's in the city, but it's also those people on the northern beaches at Redeemer Narrowena. And because of the coronavirus, we're now spreading even more broadly. It's people around the world. We have a number of people who, not just in Australia, but also in America and other places, who are connecting with us through our online. That's one of the reasons why we have continued and pursued this online live streaming service. If you are new to us, you're not normally a member here at St Paul's Sydney or Redeemer Narrowena, we do encourage you to email me and let me know who you are so we can be in contact with you and help you in your spiritual journey. Thank you for your encouragement over the last 6 months and your support during this time of change. And it's been a time that we've really appreciated, that encouragement and support that we receive from people. The reality is the message of the gospel, God's forgiveness, God's continual presence, is just as important as it has ever been, and particularly during this time. As you probably are aware, we have more and more rules that we have to obey. And often we can think that obeying the rules is how we become better people. But our relationship with God is not based on us obeying the rules. It's based on the forgiveness and the love and the grace that Jesus gives us. I want to talk about some of the changes to worship and also some of the changes to how we need to interact with each other and be church. Now, I will say up front, for this to work, I need your assistance. I need you and all of us to be open to change, to be prepared to make adjustments to our life, and rather than have a point of view that you don't like something, therefore you're not going to do it, but to actually engage with it and embrace the change. I know for some people, change is difficult, and I'm pretty aware that most of you have been through some significant changes over the last 6 months because of Covid-19 and some other things that are going on. You may even feel that how you're worshipping now is not how you'd like to worship. You mightn't like it, so you might feel, I don't really want to engage with it. You may even feel uncomfortable. But can I encourage you to, when you come to worship, not focus on the things that you love or the things that you don't like, but rather ask this one question. Ask, what is God saying to me today? Think about, as you hear the God's word, as you hear the sermon, as you hear the songs, as we worship together, ask that question, what is God saying to me today? And often God will talk to us in two ways. One, he'll talk about our relationship with him, what he's doing for us, the love he has for us. But he'll talk in regards to that, he'll talk about our spiritual needs and our spiritual growth. The second way, and this will come out a little bit today in today's sermon, that he talks about, is our relationship with others. How he is equipping you to share his good news with others through both word and action. So as you worship, I'd encourage you to focus on that, because the reality is when we focus on what is God saying to us, we have a clearer picture of what God's saying. And when we focus on that, we're going to be less concerned about the difficulties, and we actually will adjust better to the changes that are being placed upon us. One area of scripture that I take some inspiration that helps me during change is when Paul's talking to the church in Corinth, and he says this: "To the Jews I became like a Jew to win the Jews. To those under the law I became like one under the law. Though I myself am not under the law, so as to win those under the law. To those not having the law I become like one not having the law, though I am not free from God's law, but am under Christ's law, so as to win those not having the law. To the weak I became weak to win the weak. I've become all things to all people, so that by all possible means I might save some. I do all this for the sake of the gospel." God encourages us to adapt and change to our current circumstances. And so we can worship well, and you can see this from Paul. He adapted to the situation. We are called to adapt and change so we can worship well and help others to know God's grace and love during these times. There'll be a few changes to what we're doing. First of all, our worship services will be face-to-face, and they'll also be live-streamed. If you're worshipping with us face-to-face, remember you may appear on camera from time to time. Our focus, and you'll see the cameras are focused towards this sanctuary area, but from time to time you may appear on the cameras. Secondly, if you have any issues with the live streaming, please text us. Either my phone number, 0418 303 406, or 0402 012 276, detailing the specific issues and times that you're experiencing. The second thing in regards to face-to-face worship, it's absolutely essential that everyone who worships with us register. And what will make it easy if you register by Saturday night, early Saturday night for us, online. Because by registering online, it allows us to, when you come here, we've got your name and your contact details, and I like to print that off on Saturday night. So you can do so. There's details about returning to face link. If you don't have access to the internet, or you're having difficulty with the internet, please phone me and we'll make sure you're registered. Thirdly, we're asked to commit to some safe practices to be able to worship. The government says we can worship provided we follow some safe practices. That's why the pews have been rearranged, so we encourage social distancing. That's why we're being asked to wear masks, and I'll talk more about the mask a bit later for myself and others. That's why we ask that you stay home if you're ill. Now, if you do fall ill, just send me a text, particularly if you're registered. We had somebody this morning who registered yesterday, woke up this morning with a runny nose and said it's probably best they don't come. Just let us know. We'll pray for you, but also it just helps us with our numbers, particularly if we get close to our capacity numbers. And remember to practice social distancing of 1.5 metres between non-household members. Now, the interesting thing, I went to the football early this year and they said practice social distancing, put your hand out and you can touch the other person's fingertips, but no further is probably a good way to measure the 1.5 metres. So please commit to the social practicing. Now, you may have particular views about some of the requirements the government has put in place. Can I encourage you just to follow those views for us and not to argue or oppose those, because it's not going to help us. The government will make changes as they get more information, as we've seen throughout this COVID time, but it won't help us worship well. It'll distract us from focusing God and focusing on others. Also, we encourage you to bring your own Bible to worship, or at least have the Bible app on your phone, and we're using the NIV 2011 for most of our worship readings in worship. If you bring your own Bible, you'll notice the reason for that is that the Bibles have been removed from the pews, and that's to reduce the possibility of cross-contamination. It may be small, but it's just one of the requests that the government has made of us. We don't share books. We're using electronic forms for contact and prayer request, and I do encourage you to use those. If you also haven't completed the returning to in-person worship survey, if you could do that, that would also be helpful for us just to get a picture of what's going on. And lastly, the bulletin. At the moment, we're not printing out a bulletin like we used to. We are continually to send out a weekly update, which will be emailed to people. If you don't have email or you're not receiving that, please let us know. We do have some hard copies. We've printed off 3 hard copies of that weekly update for you, for anyone who needs it. But if you are having difficulties receiving that, please let us know. I had somebody contact me, said they hadn't received it. From my records, they had received it, and what was happening was it was going to their junk mail. So you may want to just check your junk mail if you're not receiving it. Now, in regards to a couple of matters that are specific for worship, face-to-face worship, changes to some practices. One is the greeting. We want to be a welcoming and greeting congregation. So we're not going to discontinue greeting, but we're going to do it differently. We're going to do it from our pews. We're going to, instead of shaking and moving around, we're just going to wave to each other. Smile, even though people can't see your smile under your mask. It will probably change your facial expression. So smile. Say good morning, say peace of the Lord, or another greeting you're comfortable with, particularly those who are close to you or around you. Secondly, singing. In New South Wales, communal singing is not permitted. They have allowed us to have a soloist or a duo to sing. So this morning Mercedes will sing sing for us. And during the song, we encourage you to reflect on the words. They'll be on the screen. And quietly hum if you wish. But keep in mind, please don't sing. It's a requirement. And the concern is that singing will spread if you've got coronavirus, we will spread that through the aerosol droplets. The third aspect is the change of practice is offerings. For those of you who walked in, you would have noticed the offering bowl was at the front desk, and that'll be the practice for some time. As you come in, we invite you to place your offerings in the offering bowl. If you haven't done so, and you have offerings to put on the offering bowl, when we get to the offering song, simply at the start of the song, just go up there and place that in there. However, what we are encouraging is people to get into the practice of electronic giving, if possible. And the reason for that, it creates a safer environment in the giving within church, but it also creates a safer environment for our treasurer, who doesn't have to count the money and also then doesn't have to go to the bank if everyone was electronically giving. Now, to do that, there are a couple of ways you can do that. One, you can arrange that with your local bank branch by just going in and say you want to give a regular amount each week and we'll give you the details of our bank accounts. Or you can do that through internet banking. Or the third thing you can do is fill out an LLL direct deposit form. LLL direct deposit form, you don't need to have an LLL account for that to be activated. What will happen is that they use that form and will notify your bank that you wish to give money on a regular basis. So if you're not already electronically giving, I encourage you to put that in place, because that will help us greatly in a number of ways. And it'll also make it safer for our treasurer and safer for us. Holy Communion will also continue. We've worked hard to make sure we can continue Holy Communion, but there are some changes. It will be coming forward to the altar. We still have it at the altar. Will be one pew at a time. But please wait till that pew has returned before you come forward to your section. We ask you to practice social distancing, and so just if you're not in the same household, when you're at the altar, just be aware of that social distancing. We are only offering communion with the wine in the individual cups, and we've got alcoholic and non-alcoholic wine, and they've been spaced apart. Just take the cup, and then when you're finished, just put it on the pew just behind here where the hand sanitizer is. For the bread, we simply ask you to put out your hand and allow me to drop the bread into your hand. And it's just to encourage some safe practices for Holy Communion. We've already mentioned about the prayers, but just a reminder that prayers I'll simply ask just before we have prayer of the church. But if you have a prayer suggestion, please feel free to send those in to me throughout the week or using the Prayer Connect form. When leaving, again, reminder to practice social distancing. You're invited to join us in the hall, and you'll notice we've got chairs spaced apart. We've got some water, cool water, and in bottled water, and we've got a pre-packaged snack if you wish to join us, and we do encourage you. There's one thing I haven't put on the screen that I should mention, that we do encourage you to get here. Try to be here by 10:20 if you're not rostered on, but if you are rostered on, particularly on the front door or the ushering or other roles that are upstairs, by 10:10. The reason for that, there's a little bit of a process, as you notice, to come in. If you're here late, you may find the door locked. There's actually a notice on the door and one or two numbers to ring if you need to get in. And the reason for that is that we need to have the front door locked for safety and security, so we know who's coming in and out. Again, remember who our community is. Our community is not just us worshipping here at the moment. Last week we had 22 people worship with us in total, in face-to-face. We had another 100 people worship with us online. And that was it's a real blessing, and it's one of the advantages of technology. So remember, it's people at St Paul's, Sydney. It's people at Redeemer Narrowena. It's people who worship with us online. And it's also people who join us for home Holy Communion services, which I'm still running where needed. And if you would like one in your local area, please let me know. Now, all these measures, all these changes, for some people they become a bit of a bugbear. And I can tell you I've had my ups and downs as a pastor in dealing with a lot of this stuff over the last 6 months. But remember, all these changes are put in place so we can worship well and worship safely. And so thank you for your patience. Thank you for those who have been prepared and willing to change. And I invite you just to take a few moments of silence as we prepare to begin worship.